People are asking me whether or not I'm still bullish on Bitcoin. And I would like to just clarify that I am more bullish than ever on Bitcoin. If you want to be successful, then you adopt the Bitcoin standard. You buy Bitcoin, you hold Bitcoin, you support the Bitcoin protocol. You do not sell your Bitcoin.
Welcome back to the channel. Aaron here from the Bitcoin Bros, coming back at you with another Bitcoin MicroStrategy video. Make sure to subscribe. We have new Bitcoin, crypto, MicroStrategy related content coming out every single day. Some huge news for MicroStrategy today. They just had their earnings call for the quarter and they had a massive announcement, and you can see it right here. MicroStrategy announced a strategic goal of raising $42 billion of capital over the next 3 years using the 21-21 plan, which includes $21 billion in equity and $21 billion in fixed income securities. The company plans to use this capital to buy more Bitcoin as a treasury reserve asset. That is absolutely massive. Saylor is trying to buy $42 billion of Bitcoin over the next 3 years. So let's just do some quick napkin math here. $42 billion. If they get that at a Bitcoin price of $75,000 per Bitcoin, that's over 560,000 BTC. That is more than what they're holding right now. They currently hold 252,000 Bitcoin. Looking at some more math here in a second. And we'll also be playing a clip of Saylor explaining what he's doing at the end of the video. So make sure to stay tuned for all of that. But you can see all of the updates right here, what they did over the past quarter, how they have been able to obtain more and more BTC. It's looking really, really good. And then from Jeff, he's actually doing a little bit more math here. He's talking about the $42 billion Bitcoin smash buy. So he's saying here, let's say there are no new buyers of Bitcoin, not including the ETFs, not including any other company, not including retail investors. And a $42 billion Bitcoin purchase results in a conservative 75x multiple on Bitcoin market cap. We're looking at a minimum of 230 price per Bitcoin. Bump that to the Bank of America 120 multiple. That puts Bitcoin at a minimum $325,000 from where we are today. That would be absolutely massive. Obviously, this multiple and this multiple here may not be what the multiple actually is. It could be lower. It could even be higher. But you can see that's where Bitcoin could go with all of this money that MicroStrategy is going to use to buy more BTC over the next 3 years. And if it goes to 325K, if they have over 500,000 Bitcoin, that's going to put the total Bitcoin that MicroStrategy holds over $162 billion in Bitcoin assets. So now you can think about the MNAV and how out of hand that could get. And then you can see how big the market cap of MicroStrategy really could get over the next couple of years. And even in the earnings call, Saylor says, we are a growth company. It is not unreasonable to have a 30x to 50x multiple for that growth. So you can see that even Saylor himself thinks that MNAV could get as high as 50x. A 50x multiple with holding $162 billion of Bitcoin on your balance sheet. You can do the math, guys. That's going to be $8.1 trillion in total valuation for MicroStrategy. That would be absolutely massive. And a lot of people were wondering, why was MicroStrategy selling off during the earnings call? It's really because a lot of the algorithms trade on this data when it comes out. The EPS didn't look good. The revenue doesn't look good. Everything's down year over year when you're looking at the normal revenue numbers of the traditional business. As you can see, a lot of it is down here. Their product license and subscription service is down 13%. The product support is down 8%. Other services are down 8%. Gross profit is actually down. It's estimated at 92 million. It only came in at 81 million. And a lot of this will change next year. And the reason why I say it is when the FASB accounting standard comes in, there is reason to believe that the unrealized BTC gains will flow to EPS, which could potentially reprice MicroStrategy to 10K. So instead of all of these numbers looking very negative, the EPS could look positive when you factor in the Bitcoin gains. Right now, with the current accounting standards, we don't get that. But with FASB coming, that could potentially change. And they did confirm on the earnings call that MicroStrategy will adopt FASB in Q1 2025. So that's something to watch out for next year during the earnings call. How does this look on the income statement? Does the profit from Bitcoin actually show up in EPS, that would be absolutely huge and could definitely give an additional boost to MicroStrategy's stock price. And then we have some naysayers. Peter Schiff saying, how much longer will the market allow this to continue? It should be clear by now that MicroStrategy will end up in bankruptcy. And what Peter Schiff is saying here is that market is overpriced. The earning per shares for all these stocks in the stock market are overvalued. And he's not wrong. MicroStrategy knows that. That's what Saylor's doing. He's taking advantage of the overpriced stock market to buy more Bitcoin. He's using these ATM offerings to do just that. He'll be explaining that at the end of the clip, so stay tuned for that. But Peter Schiff just doesn't understand what Saylor is doing. And Peter Schiff talks about MicroStrategy buying all this Bitcoin levered, but right now, the conversion rate for all this convertible debt that they are issuing is extremely low. The interest payments on these are not that high. And they're doing it very strategically to where they can afford the convertible debt that they take on. So when we see them raise $21 billion in convertible debt, I'm sure they're going to do it very strategically where they can afford the payments in the future. And the last time Peter Schiff said something like this was back in November of 2022. He says, MicroStrategy has made a new 52-week low, down 90% from the recent high in February 2021. Shareholders will pay dearly for Saylor's Bitcoin obsession. Don't make the mistake of thinking 90% off now is a good buy. This isn't just a sale, it's a going out of business sale. That's what he said in late 2022. And after he said that, MicroStrategy has rallied 1,700%. So we could see MicroStrategy rally another 1,700% from the date of the tweet that he just made. And then we have Max Kaiser weighing in. He's saying other companies issue debt to buy back their own stock to mask their failed business models. MicroStrategy issues debt and equity to buy more Bitcoin to boost the winningest business model in the S&P 500. And you got to think about how early we are. MicroStrategy just started doing this 4 years ago. Bitcoin's only sitting at around $72,000 at the time of this recording. Bitcoin's about to go into a bull market if the 4-year Bitcoin cycle continues to play out. We are still very, very early. There are people calling for Bitcoin to go to $1 million by 2030. Cathie Wood believes that. Saylor believes Bitcoin could be going to $42 million by 2045. What do you think that's going to do to MicroStrategy if Bitcoin does that? We are still very, very early in this game, so don't feel like you missed out on MicroStrategy because it's up huge. Or don't feel like you missed out on Bitcoin because it's up huge. And then the last thing I want to share here is Ben Workman says, Fong just said that MicroStrategy's $21 billion ATM is the largest in capital markets in history, and that's all going to Bitcoin. That's absolutely huge. I want to go ahead and play this clip for you guys. Saylor discussing what he's doing here, why this makes sense to him. Let's go ahead and check out the clip.
What you can do, or what MicroStrategy can do that an ETF can't do, is borrow against our stock. It's marginable. We can leverage the stock. You can option the stock. We have options, puts and calls. You can short via puts. You can go long via calls. And you can buy our debt or trade it, and we can sell the debt. So all the other spot ETFs are not marginable. They have no options, and they can't issue equity capital via shelf registration. They really can't trade at a premium. They get basically arbitrage back to net asset value, and they can't issue convertible debt. Now, why would you want to issue convertible debt? Well, because if you're a convertible arbitrager, you want to find a company with three things. You want volatility, massive volatility. You want liquidity. You want to be able to trade in the spot market in order to hedge out your exposure. And you want durability or transparency. You want to know that the company as a going concern is going to continue. So if you think about companies like GameStop, they were very volatile and liquid, but that trade doesn't go on for years and years. And with our company, we're basically holding a bunch of Bitcoin. Everybody knows we stand for Bitcoin. Everybody knows we're going to buy more Bitcoin. Everybody knows we're not going to sell the Bitcoin. So we have credibility and we're durable. The S&P index has a volatility of about 12. Gold is 10. Real estate, 18. Apple, 20, 22. Tesla, 45. Bitcoin, 75. MicroStrategy is levered Bitcoin with a passionate shareholder base, 120 to 140, 150 something, but more than 100.
Okay.
Okay, so if you know the Black-Scholes equation, if you plug volatility in the Black-Scholes equation, it makes the option more valuable. Nobody wants to buy an option that has low volatility. So we stumbled on a very interesting opportunity because we're an operating company that can issue convertible debt, and we were able to appeal to a variety of investment classes. For example, one class of investors is public company investors. They want Bitcoin exposure. They can't buy Bitcoin. They can't buy the Bitcoin ETF. They can buy a company that does something with Bitcoin. It's like I can buy a gold miner, but I can't buy the gold and I can't buy the gold ETF.
Yes.
So they have billions of dollars of capital and they have to invest in an operating company. And we became the most notable, premier, and the most transparent company. You know, with MicroStrategy, we're going to buy Bitcoin, keep it, and try to accrete more Bitcoin per share. There's another class of investors, the Bitcoin maximalists. They love Bitcoin, but they have money in their 401k, and they can't buy Bitcoin with their 401k, but they can buy a stock like MicroStrategy. Now, why would they like us? Well, would you like to be able to borrow money for 7 years for no interest?
Exactly.
And buy
It's like
Bitcoin?
free money.
You would like to, but you can't.
Yes.
But we can. So if you like that prospect, they would buy our stock because they feel like they're along for the ride, right? They're getting advantage of our ability to get cheap capital to buy Bitcoin. Another reason is, would you like to borrow against Bitcoin from your bank? Well, you can't because the bank doesn't take the Bitcoin as collateral, but MicroStrategy stock is marginable. So you could pledge it as collateral and borrow it at SOFR plus 50 or 100 basis points. So that way you get to keep your Bitcoin and take a pretty cheap margin loan against it. So some people like that. A third class of investors want volatility. There's something called MSTY. It's like an ETF that sells MicroStrategy volatility.
Okay.
It generates 100% plus dividend yield. Okay, so if you just sell the calls, you could own the Bitcoin and sell covered calls out of the money or in the money, and then you generate some yield. So some people like that. The reason that they do it against us is because we have Bitcoin and we have options. There are billions. There's like $30-40 billion of open interest in the MicroStrategy option market. Well, there are no options on the spot ETFs, you see, and you can't borrow against them. They're not marginable. So we had this company that was optionable, marginable. It was high volatility Bitcoin equity, but it's also highly levered Bitcoin equity. So Bitcoin would go up and we would go up more. And so if you like Bitcoin, then if you like the idea of taking all your money and buying Bitcoin, you would like the idea of borrowing a lot of money for free and buying even more Bitcoin, right? So a lot of those people decided to buy in as equity holders. Then you get the haters, right? People that don't like Bitcoin. Well, if you want to short Bitcoin, then you could short our stock. But what if you wanted to short the stock with options and puts? Well, there aren't puts on the spot product, but there are puts on MicroStrategy. So you could go and you could buy, and there are billions of dollars of short options traded on our company. So there's those people. They just hate Bitcoin. Then there's people that are they're not sure, they hate our business. So like, we're going to short you and buy Bitcoin.
Okay, yes, exactly.
Right? And so you have those arbitragers. And then there are people, they don't even know what Bitcoin is. All they know is they can generate 100% yield.
It's going up. Yeah.
And then there's people that are the super option traders and they think, well, the options 6 months out are mispriced versus the options 3 months out. So I'm going to sell the options 6 months out and buy the options 3 months out, and I'm going to take advantage of that. And then you have the fixed income investors. They can only buy bonds, so they could buy our bond. And then you have the convertible arbitragers. They need a convertible bond, and they're going to actually short the equity, buy the bond, capture the yield. And then you have people, what if you wanted to buy Bitcoin at the all-time high, but you don't want to have the downside? What if you want 80% of the upside, 20% of the downside? Well, if we sell a bond and it's got it's a $500 million bond, but we've got $5 billion of unpledged Bitcoin. You have this collateral, like 10-to-1 collateral, and you could say, well, Bitcoin would have to trade down by 90% before I'm in trouble. So if you're risk adverse and you want Bitcoin upside, but you're afraid to take 1-for-1 downside, you would buy the bond. And of course, you can construct any type of instrument you want by trading the bonds, the equity, and the options, and you construct whatever you want. So what happened then is MicroStrategy stock started trading a lot, billions and billions of dollars a week, and then billions of dollars a day. And then the options started trading. And so then we went back to the market and we did a bond issue, and I guess it was going to be about 500 million, but it got upsized and became 800 million. And we did that at 62 basis points at a big premium. So we basically sell the bond for 62 basis points, and then we buy the Bitcoin and we capture the yield difference, or we capture the premium. But then, of course, we basically borrowed $800 million for 6 years to buy Bitcoin. If Bitcoin goes up 24% a year, then you could double your money twice. So maybe you actually make $2.4 billion on the back end, some hundreds of millions of dollars on the front end, and you do it while you're paying 0.5% or 62 basis points interest. Right? The conventional wisdom is when you sell stock, you dilute the shareholders. But in our case, the more stock we issue or the more money we raise, the more we accrete. And so hundreds of thousands of companies have assets on their balance sheet which are dilutive. And Bitcoin is the first major asset which is accretive. So we turn the entire treasury strategy upside down by actually accreting assets. Today we have $15 billion of Bitcoin on the balance sheet. And the operating company generates $75 million a year in cash flow. And the operating revenues are $500 million. So we made the balance sheet the primary part of the company instead of the P&L. Everybody else wants the balance sheet to go to zero or negative, and they want the P&L to be the primary part of the company.